And we are live with the punch list on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. I'm Abram and I'm with Clave from Nerds on Earth fame.
That's fame.
And
I love it.
hey, fame is relative. So this is the punch list brought to you by nerdsonearth.com. It's a website you can go to for all of your nerdy interests, everything from comics and Star Wars and D&D, everything in between. And every Wednesday we put out the punch list where we wrap up the our top seven nerdy news articles from the past week, and then we dive into it live every Wednesday afternoon. So you can see our mugs on your screens spewing. I wouldn't call it nonsense, but it's comments, commentary.
Nonsense.
It's not nonsense. 50% of the time,
Oh
it's not.
man, this is a very educated opinion.
Yeah. So I think we'll
I
just
spent many tens of thousands of dollars for this educated opinion.
well, it's money well spent because you are exuding confidence at least. All right,
That's
let's talk.
something, right?
It is. Let's talk about the news. So, starting with number 7, we have a little D&D headline. WizKids is
Indeed.
releasing premium Curse of Strahd miniatures. So you go ahead, go to the punch list, check out the links, see some images of these new minis. They're pretty cool, as are most WizKids minis these days. And I think they're all pre-painted, and it coincides
Yep.
with the release of the revamped
I
edition.
hear what you did there with the word vamp.
Oh yeah.
That was good.
So that we talked about that last week. So if you missed that, you snooze, you lose for the
You got to
punch
spend
list.
30 minutes to get that joke.
Yeah. So hey, $40 for some pre-painted minis. Clave, your expert opinion.
Yeah, WizKids, they make a lot of minis, don't they? I mean, it's at this point, I can't keep up with it, and how many unboxing videos do we have on this here YouTube channel? Um,
Countless,
yeah,
countless.
so a lot of big countless. Uh, yeah, so WizKids makes a lot of minis. There's some more set. I think this what's interesting about this one is these aren't blind boxes. These are you see what you get. So
Yep.
$40 and you get a set of all the major characters, and so I think that's great for folks who are collectors. It's great for folks who just maybe they're playing through the adventure and they want the culmination of that and they want the major characters for minis. It's not great for folks who are doing kind of encounter building. They just want a bunch of minis to build encounters. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, WizKids keeps making D&D miniatures because they keep selling D&D miniatures. Us nerds love them.
Yeah, it's their bread and butter, and it's a good thing these minis aren't made of that. Otherwise, people would be
Ooh,
buying
I
the
I
most
I
expensive bread
do
and
like
butter
bread and
minis.
butter. I'm going
I,
low carb though, Abram. I can't do it.
yeah,
Going
so
low carb.
you can't eat these minis. Sorry, well you'll have to pass.
Nope, it's just butter and butter for me.
Pass the beans. Get this guy some beans. So Curse of Strahd minis, there you have it. Take a look at them. They're pretty nice. Coming from WizKids. Number 6 on the punch list this week, we have AMC and Universal who have agreed to a shorter theatrical window for new releases. So this theatrical window of how long movies have to be in theaters before you can make them available for people to view them at home used to be 90 days, and now they have trimmed that down all the way, taken all the crust off that bread, and put it down
Hmm.
to 17 days, which is staggeringly small.
Yeah,
Is
essentially 3 weekends.
3 weekends, right? Exactly.
Yeah,
So, how does this, Clave? How is this going to impact the theater industry in the future?
man, it's a change, and then the COVID has been catalyst for a lot of change in a lot of industries, and maybe none more so than the movie industry. And gosh, I mean, it's theaters. They have no leverage, and if it wasn't for COVID, I hate to say it, um,
They
theaters had a couple of other issues. Um, Kind of the fear of mass shootings, just the rising prices. Um, I mean, they had a lot of things going against them to begin with, and now COVID has effectively shut them down. They lost all leverage. Movie theaters are like, we're spending $100 million to make this movie. We're going to find an alternative. Meanwhile, like all of us nerds will watch it at home, right? Like we got a 50-inch TV, and microwave popcorn, right?
right. It's
So
like
it's fascinating, and it's going to be long term, I suspect. I mean, humans, we're social creatures, so we're going to go out to the movies, and it's fun, and um, it's date night, right? You still think about
right.
movies, so those certainly. I think there's something about Hollywood that'll always be there, but it's certainly this is a catalyst for change. 17 days, 3 weekends. That
I
is
mean,
huge.
it's really crazy. I mean, and obviously they have caveats built in that if it's like a huge movie, they can leave it in as long as they want, and they can kind of expand that. But I mean, you're talking. I don't even know what that kind of looks like from a theater. Like, I think they like lease the movie or whatever they do the rights to show the movie. Like
Hmm.
how that impacts because they're like, well,
Hmm.
if you're gonna release this in 3 weeks, you know, I don't want to pay you the same amount of money I've been paying. So it's going to be
Yeah.
really, really interesting how that all shakes out. But we're seeing with, we just had some news about Mulan movie coming to streaming services and stuff. And the prices with those, and
Yeah.
we saw it with Trolls World Tour, and
Yep.
people are gonna buy those options if they have them. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. For my family, I have two girls, so why would I not do Mulan on Disney Plus? Like it's a bargain at $30
Oh yeah,
for Disney Plus. A bargain,
and I'll
and
send
we'll have a
you
great time.
I'll send you more popcorn than you could possibly hold.
Oh my gosh.
All right, so
Back to butter.
AMC
It always comes
back
back
to
to
butter.
butter.
Yeah, I'm trying now. This is my theme now. You mentioned that I had the little the crust thing, trimming the crust off. I am sticking with the bread and butter.
Yep.
We'll see how long it lasts.
There we go.
Uh, number number five, boom, collects the Firefly sequel comics into a single volume. So this is all of the Serenity stories put into one beautiful tome just for you. So it's up for pre-order now. Is considered a deluxe edition, as it should be, because it is
Deluxe.
everything in one. Clave, have you read any of the Serenity series?
Not a one. I love Firefly. I just haven't read any of the comics, so I don't know. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I haven't read any of them either, and I'll be honest, I've watched one episode of Firefly, and I this was
Ooh,
years ago. Yeah, I know.
what? You have
It's out
something
in
to
the internet.
say.
It's out in the internet.
You must watch Firefly. It is a delight. You must do it. I'm gonna hold you to that.
I will. Like I've been meaning to watch it because I don't think I gave it its
I don't
time in court.
listen, pal. I don't want to hear about your intentions. I want it done.
I
It's
have
such a good
only
show.
I've only good intentions for Firefly. That's all I. All right.
Yeah, but
Well,
I haven't read the comics, and so a $75 deluxe. Yeah,
it's for fans. So
all I got. Yeah,
there you go. There's a huge cult following for Firefly, and they will love this tome.
the brown
Um,
coats. The brown coats. Yeah,
I haven't watched Firefly, so I don't know what that means.
you do.
All right, Firefly, get that deluxe edition. That's all. Sorry, we don't have much to say on this one. This is outside of our wheelhouse a little bit. But number four, Paizo has partnered with Beadle and Grimm's, which is another company, for
Yep.
complete character chronicles. So it's coming to Kickstarter this fall. But everybody loves, there's certain campaigns where, anytime you make a character, people usually love their characters, and, they develop this whole story with them throughout their campaigns. And especially campaigns that might be, low risk, more focused on the story and keeping the same characters intact, where you have a character maybe over multiple years. And so these character chronicles are meant to be a journal and character sheets and literally everything, sort of like a scrapbook for your character as it evolves over time and changes and everything that happens. So people absolutely love this stuff. And this is
Mm-hmm.
going to be the so-called Cadillac of character chronicles, especially when it comes to Pathfinder stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the economics of role playing are interesting, right? You have most of the books that only the dungeon master buys, right? Because you don't
Right?
want your players to buy any sort of adventure material or anything like that. So most of your books are dungeon master, which is what, 1 in 6 people. So that's interesting. You have uh, folks who create the books unable to make a living because folks expect that this book that takes 20 people to make it, however many person hours, Unreal should cost like $5. It's like, can we get that as a $5 PDF? And so the creators can't make, but then we see like these premium accessories,
Oh,
$200 dice sets and fancy things that are just flying off the shelves because people are weird, and we're weird with money. It's just whatever. We don't have to go into that. Everyone knows it, and we're all like that. Like I
a,
buy weird stuff.
a
Like I'll
$2
yeah,
iOS
I'll
app?
buy
No. But a $70 character
yeah,
chronicle? Give
right,
it to me now.
right. $20 to change the oil in my car so it keeps running. Not that's horrible, but I'll spend $20 on a whatever, an action figure from 1986
I
because
can
of nostalgia,
pose
right?
for
So
photos right in my car.
totally, totally. So humans are weird about money, but this is interesting. So Beadle and Grimm, right? Is that how I'm saying it? It's the guy who plays Shaggy, hundreds of dollars, accessories to kind of trick out your campaign. And
Right.
so this one's interesting. It's a Kickstarter that's effectively supercharged fancy deluxe character sheet, and so we'll have to see how the Kickstarter launches. I suspect it'll do a gazillion just
A
because of all the
gazillion.
things I say. Because on one hand, I'm like, well, it's a fancy character sheet. Who in the world would do that? And then, but knowing what we know about people, it'll do a gazillion. That's my
Right.
prediction, a gazillion.
I think that you might be a little on the north end of a gazillion, but it's
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I see these things. I mean, they look great, and I think they are going. I'm with you. They're going to
yeah,
fly off the virtual
they're
shelf.
super,
That
super deluxe.
they're
Yeah,
awesome. So check those out. Kickstarter's coming up this fall sometime. So check the punch list
yeah.
article. Get the link, get the article on that, and get all your details there for your fancy character chronicles. Next
Where's that
up,
punch list article again?
the
Where's
punch
that
list
punch list
article.
article again?
You'll find that at nerdsonearth.com. It's a website on the
Oh,
internet,
oh, good.
and you'll find it. I mean, you literally can't miss it. It's the first thing right there on the website.
Totally, totally.
So
If you want your nerdy news, just tune in every week, and we'll curate it for you, collect it.
yes, we'll give it right your way. All right, number three, moving on to board games. Friday the 13th slashes its way onto the tabletop game scene. What a headline. So the
Yeah,
OP has announced Friday the 13th Horror at Camp Crystal Lake. It's the first ever officially licensed game based on the iconic slasher film franchise. It's labeled as a press your luck survival game where you take on the role of camp counselors, and they have, if you kind of read into it a little bit, they have, all of your classic tropey archetypes. You got the jock and the nerd and all this other stuff. Um, as you try to survive for 5 nights at a cursed summer camp. Um,
yeah.
it's
Is
and
it
it's
designed by Prospero Hall by any
I
chance?
I Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head. You may be correct on that. I could do a quick Google. Um, Friday the
Well, the reason
13th.
I ask is these IP games and kind of this. I don't want to say entryway. I feel like that has such a poor connotation, but these games. If you're judging on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the intensity, the Twilight Imperiums. Um, this is like a 1.5, 2 weight, maybe even a
Totally.
2.5, but in the middle, which I think kind of hits a huge spectrum of gamers, which is fun. And you do an IP, and you can find them at bigger box stores like Target. Target, they're selling an incredible amount of really good board games, and they keep getting more and more exclusive titles, so it must be doing well. So yeah,
Yeah.
I have 700 gabillion board games, so
you
I might
you're
I might pass on this one. I might not need them all.
you sort
But
of
yeah, it's
you
what
got this
what
go-to gazillion gabillion. This is a common theme here. The designer, this is actually
yeah.
a Sean Fletcher design. Um, Artist was
Okay,
Delaney Mamer.
I don't know that, but
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's anytime that's what the big box stores that, like you said, they're really good at leveraging these IP as a good entry level. And again, that has the connotation that it's like, wow, it's entry level. It's not gonna be fun for the gritty hardcore gamer, but that's definitely not the case. I've played plenty
yeah,
of entry level games and had a
yeah.
great time.
That's
So
Those are actually the enjoyable games.
right, they're low stress, low stress, high
Exactly,
fun.
exactly. Hey, we
That's what
had a
I'm
good time
after.
here. We didn't spend all of our time in the rule book.
Exactly. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to be rolling dice and moving pawns and not necessarily putting your nose in a rule book. But if you want to do that, hey, more power to you. So Friday the 13th, the camp, what was it? Curse of Horror at Camp Crystal Lake. Um, Maybe it takes place in Illinois. There's a Crystal Lake in Illinois. Who knows?
Ooh.
I
I'm
don't know
sure
enough
there's
about it.
14 of them here in Minnesota, pal.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Number 2 on the punch list, we have. Well, this is interesting because it's news and it's also old news. It's new and old news. But you can now play Starfinder on your Amazon Alexa device. So last year, Starfinder got released as this interactive sort of pilot Starfinder episode
Hmm.
on
A
Alexa,
little
and now
trial.
little trial, and now you have 6 more episodes that are coming your way. So you can either buy them for $2 a piece, or you can get them $10 for the whole set of 6 because they're not all coming out at once. I think they start with just 3.
Hmm.
But you have Laura Bailey, Nathan Fillion, great voice talents and acting talents that are going to be a part of that campaign. So I don't know, for $10, I don't know the length of these, how long it would take you to get through. But
Yeah.
if you enjoy doing the Starfinder on Alexa, if you tried that interactive pilot last year, I'd say give this a shot too, because I'm sure the quality of it's going to be excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with voice talent from Captain Tight Pants, so of Firefly fame, Abram.
What's
Um,
Firefly?
yeah, so this is an interesting thing. And so the story goes that Amazon actually reached out to Paizo um, to kind of pitch this idea of a choose your own adventure played with your Alexa device. And I don't have Alexa, I have Siri. Um, but I think you can also download an app and do it that way. The
Ooh,
Alexa app. Um, so it's pretty interesting to think about. Oh, okay, a little choose your own adventure. I play Starfinder with my nephews, as you know. Maybe
I do.
everyone, you know, Nash. Maybe you don't know that. Um, so I play Starfinder with my nephews, and so I texted my brother-in-law and said, "Hey, here's what's happening." And my nephews were like, "Oh, we didn't know this was a thing. That's exciting!" And so I tweeted the developers and said, "Hey, what's the age rating on this?" And they were like, "Yeah, yeah, young lads
Nice.
can enjoy this." And so I'm like, "Hey, this is fun, friendly experiment. 6 episodes, great voice talent, affordable price, an alternative way to play. It's a great setting, as you and I know, because we love Starfinder. So what's not to, it's weird in a fun way."
Yeah, it's like it's funny you say that the choose your own adventure books. Like I read tons of those growing up and loved them, and this is like the 21st century version of those books.
Totally,
So it's
totally.
super cool, super cool.
And
So
Alexa is your dungeon master.
yeah, I don't know how ruthless she might be, but
Oh,
you could probably assume
yeah.
the absolute just strict as can be. So go ahead, go play Starfinder on Alexa. All right, number one, final bit of news on the punch list this week. There is a massive Twilight Imperium expansion that is headed our way, entitled Prophecy of Kings, and it shaves just under $100 at $99.95. But you get a whole bunch of new factions, unique leaders, map tiles, mechs. I mean, if you haven't played Twilight Imperium, which I have not, it is widely regarded as a fantastic game. Although a bit on the heavier side, we talked about Friday the 13th. This is the other end of the spectrum, Twilight Imperium, where you will be
Mm.
spending time in that rule book. Um, so
Speaking
I,
of having your nose in the rule book, yeah.
So it's obviously geared towards people that probably played the first one, the original Twilight Imperium, and are comfortable with it before adding a bunch of new stuff. But you go on Board Game Geek, you'll see Twilight Imperium, up at the top of people's popularity lists. Consistently it's up there. So there's definitely a market for more Twilight Imperium content. So great news to have that coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never played either, and kind of the narrative around Twilight Imperium is it is a massive board game, as in
Like
many,
tables,
many,
you
many
need
hours.
tables.
Yeah, yeah. So it's supposed to be super intense, and as a result, it has a very narrow niche of gamers, but they're super passionate about it. And they're evangelists, like, "Oh, we got to get you to play Twilight Imperium one day." And you hear these stories of folks that, I finally sat down to play Twilight Imperium, and I had a great time, and it was 9 hours long and never again.
Never again.
Right, because I mean, it's whatever. I could do a lot in 9 hours. So anyway, it's interesting, and so another thing is, you hear about board games and the big board games, and they're like, if you buy create an expansion, you hope to get 10 to 15% of your customers to buy that expansion, right? So 100%. But Twilight Imperium might be that game where you get, at least half of your players buy the expansion because they're so passionate about it. Another thing is it keeps the game in print. It kind of gives the fans something to do. Made by Fantasy Flight Games, which I'm going to use
Yep.
this as an opportunity to transition to some of the other titles that they talked about in their in-flight report that just happened, which is the Guardians of the Galaxy expansion for Marvel Champions, the
So
game that I love.
his favorite game,
A new,
practically.
yeah, it has rocketed up to my top 7 list of favorite games. I love it. So Fantasy Flight, they have a lot of these heavy IPs like Twilight Imperium, but also they have Marvel Champions, and another tease at the end of that update from Fantasy Flight is Descent 3. And Descent Third Edition. Descent is another one of those big games. It's like a dungeon crawl in a box, highly regarded, nowhere near as intense as Twilight Imperium, but another game. So my point is, us gamers, we have it made. There's these
Oh,
huge, big, brain busting games. There's fun IP games like um, like Friday the 13th. There's fun games like living card games like Marvel Champions, and there's everything in between. So, board gamers, we have it. We have it made.
Totally. And, this is just one of the many, announcements and news that came out of Gen Con Online that just wrapped up on
Mm-hmm.
Sunday. So,
Mm-hmm.
it was obviously a different format, and it's kind of hard to gather and consolidate all that news together because there really is no central spot. But a lot of that stuff that was
Yeah.
done,
If
if it's done
Yeah, if we
through,
were better nerds, we would write a wrap up post if we were better people. But I don't know.
yeah, we have not at this point. But there are, like, saved videos. They did it out on Twitch. I think they did it on Zoom,
Yeah,
all different platforms. So the content is out
yeah,
there if you search for Gen Con stuff. And so there's probably more news coming that we haven't it hasn't reached our ears yet. That already happened
yeah.
over the weekend. So
2020. It's made things weird. That's
it's
for
a
darn
year.
sure.
It's a year. And that's sort of a wrap on the punch list. So we'll break it down for you one more time. The top 7 from the past week. Number 1, D&D news. WizKids has released premium Curse of Strahd miniatures, pre-painted, all ready for your use. Number 6, AMC and Universal have agreed to shorter theatrical window of new releases down to 17 days. Number
3
5,
weekends.
Boom has collected Firefly sequel comics into a single volume for all of your Firefly needs. Number 4, Paizo has partnered with Beadle and Grimm for a complete Character Chronicles series of premium journals for your characters. Number 3, Friday the 13th has slashed its way onto the tabletop game scene with Horror at Camp Crystal Lake, coming for $29.99. Number 2, you can now play Starfinder on your Amazon Alexa device. 6
Yeah,
episodes of a Starfinder campaign led by your favorite or least favorite AI GM. And number 1, Twilight Imperium expansion, Prophecy of Kings, rolling in at $99.95, is coming our way for all of you board game fans. That's the punch list.
that's it. That's a wrap, buddy.
That's it. Clave, as always, thank you for joining me and talking nerdy news.
Yeah, buddy.
And thank you, nerds. Be sure to check out nerdsonearth.com. Make sure you catch that punch list every week and check out all of our other great articles over on the site. We're putting one out, at least one, every day for your reading enjoyment. But until then,
Yeah.
it's been fun.
Later, nerds.
Later, nerds.